All right, we are live. What is happening, everybody? Happy Thursday. We have an awesome session today. So for those of you guys out in Facebook land, one, let me know if you can hear my audio okay, and you guys hear if you can hear me okay and loud and clear. And then B, hashtag live, hashtag replay. We're going to be covering an awesome topic, like I mentioned, and it's going to be with somebody I'm going to introduce who's on the GSD team in just 1 second. And when you guys are going through this, you're probably going to want to watch the replay on this one. It's an important part of how we run an agency, how we help with lead generation. A lot of the things we do is on the backbone of the topic we're going to be covering, and it's pretty hard work to do. It's really simple to talk about. It's just hard work and application to get right and get consistent with. So today will be a sliver, like Lloyd's going to walk us through, and I'll introduce him in 1 second. I'll let him speak for himself. And then let me know if you guys are wanting to talk about this topic. It's going to be demystifying the setter process. Like, we're going to reveal the secrets behind it, like the truth behind it, not the highlight reel, the social media route, because it's something like, as a business owner, running custom creatives and the GSD and whatnot, finding good setters consistently year over year. Heck, some of you guys can't even hold a fucking setter for a month, right, before they go on and go into a different land. But then all that work falls right back on you guys. And then it almost feels like we're climbing up the ladder, and then we're starting at the bottom, climbing up, starting at the bottom. So we're going to be covering that today. And then while we're going through this, those of you guys, like, while you're here live streaming with us, and whoever's in the Facebook stream, drop what your offer is, and then also drop what you would use a setter for. If you had a setter right now, what would be those primary things you would want that setter to do? Okay, now I'm going to do the introduction. Everybody, meet Lloyd. Lloyd ran an incredibly successful setter business for awesome entrepreneurs that he worked with. We've stolen him from his company, and we brought him inside the GSD to make everything better. So I'm going to let the man, the legend, talk and introduce himself really quick to all you guys. So just as an FYI, get in the chat right now, if you guys can hop over and open in a new tab, your Facebook page right now, and do hashtag Lloyd. Let's give him a shout out. It'll get his energy up. So when he shows his screen, if he's going to be presenting some files here and some slides, he may open up a little bit extra juice for you guys. Okay. Is that cool with you guys? So hashtag Lloyd, and then hashtag give me the juice. All right, Lloyd, you're up.
All right, guys. Can everyone hear me? Give me a thumbs up on chat or just on the screen if you hear me. All right, brilliant. So yeah, my name is Lloyd. Rahul's given a little bit of a quick intro about me, but maybe I can do some expansion, if you will, so that you guys have a little bit more context. So the last 8 or so years, I've been in sales and marketing, not always in internet marketing necessarily. I actually kicked off my career in door-to-door sales. And then for 6 years, I was in the software world. I was working in software companies, startups for the most part. But I would say for the most part, even before I went into internet marketing, a big consistency that I noticed between all the results that not only I had personally achieved in my career, but also the companies that I had worked at, was that there was a certain level of proactivity in all of our strategies. It wasn't as much that we were just going to hope people showed up at our doorstep and would buy our stuff or would book a meeting with us. It was always us being incredibly proactive and trying to do the majority of the work for the customer, so that if we need to kind of take the burden of effort into getting them into a sales call or into closing a deal, that we would do so in order to make the buying process just more seamless, more efficient, more easy. And ultimately we get to profit at the end of the day as well. So when I think back to the companies that I had worked at, both the window cleaning company that I started when I was in college, the one that I did door-to-door for, and the one that I hired a bunch of college kids to do door-to-door for as well for me, down to when I was working in software, where we had teams of people who would cold call, email, pretty much do everything under the sun in order to book meetings. It was always about us just taking that extra effort. So 3 years ago, when I began my own company, I kind of started adopting those same mindsets. At first, it was me having the burden of the work on myself. It was me doing all of the work, right? I would share content every single day across multiple channels. And then I would also DM every single day, 50 to 100 people. And then as well, since people would love my content, they would engage in my posts, and I would have to start conversations and try to get them to actually jump on calls, 2-steps, all that type of stuff that you guys have learned from Cody and Rahul and the team. But what I realized very fast was that me starting my own company, it was impossible for me to maintain that level of proactivity that I knew was like mandatory to scale when I was still a solopreneur. And for a year and a half, I was a solopreneur. I had quit my company, the startups that I'd been working at. And for that first year, it was just me grinding. And was I able to get success pretty quickly off the bat? Yeah, but by like 6 or 8 months into my business, I was like working 60 to 70 hours a week, making more money than I had ever been making prior to me starting my entrepreneurship journey. But it was wild, the amount of stress that I had just juggling 200 DMs every single day. At one point, I started having like back spasms because I pretty much wouldn't leave my desk ever. And that costed like thousands of dollars in physiotherapy to fix. And it was that moment that I realized this doesn't make sense. I need to still maintain these level of activities. This still needs to be done. All the DMing, all the messaging, all the proactive business development still needs to be done, but it can't be me. If I'm the CEO of the business, this is not a CEO level task. So that's when I first started thinking about, you know what? Every company that I'd worked for in the past had sales reps, had a sales development people. Why can't I? And that was a bit of a paradigm shift. That was the first time in my entrepreneurship journey that I realized, you know what? Maybe I'm big enough to hire. Maybe if I don't hire, I can't even really consider myself truly a business owner. Maybe if I'm going to continue doing all this stuff myself, I'm more just like an employee still. It just so happens that I'm also my own boss. That was the paradigm shift. Now, I did have some trials and errors when I first started hiring because I hadn't really done it before. I initially hired the wrong people, and then I also realized that there's this entire gamut of training that needs to be done for them to do the right things. And it took me a couple months for me to figure it out. But once I did, I was pretty much able to double my business from, at the time, it was doing around like $30,000 a month. It was able to double to $60,000 a month very quickly as soon as I was able to hire my first full-time setter that was good at his job. And from there, the business continued to grow. And then soon after, so many of my clients were noticing my growth that it became obvious that I needed to provide this as a service as well. They were all bottlenecking. They all had the same problem. They were all spending too much time in the DMs. They were all sacrificing either time with their family or friends, or sacrificing other things that they could be doing in their business because they're too busy worrying and working on lead generation for their own company. So that's when I decided, you know what? This is something that people clearly need. This is something that people also just don't really know how to do. So I'm going to do it for them. Now, today is going to be special because I'm just going to be sharing with you exactly what we typically do for people. And we normally are charging tens of thousands of dollars for this exact service. Now, we're not going to be doing it for you today, obviously. But at the end, if you want to learn a little bit more about how we might be able to even do it for you, we can. But at the very minimum, even if you don't want to work with us to build out your appointment setting team, we'll show you everything that you need to know today so that you could theoretically even do it yourself. All right. So if anyone's excited, put something in the chat, drop me an emoji, whatever it is. But I'm pretty hyped. This is something that I really enjoy doing. I'm all about like allowing entrepreneurs to actually work on their businesses, because we didn't get in here. We didn't start our businesses just to spend 10 hours a day in the DMs. That's not why anyone, I mean, listen, if anyone did start their businesses because they just want to be in Facebook Messenger all day long, drop that below as well. I'm curious to meet the crazy people that are like that. But I wasn't, right? So I'm really passionate about helping entrepreneurs actually work on their businesses so that they can build something that's impactful and not just be in the weeds and in the trenches every single day. Okay.
Awesome, dude. If you guys are ready, hashtag I'm ready. And Lloyd will release the juice. Yeah, this is literally truly one of the most important pieces you can ever have in your business is duplicating the sales process, getting you more swings at that bat. The person that can consistently make this responsible for you and learn how to qualify and can grow within your organization, you'll be able to make sales. I don't want to say more effortlessly, because that's a different part of the process, but you have the opportunities in front of you on a consistent level where you don't have to wake up thinking, what am I going to do today? Like, what am I going to focus on the business today? Because like, to me, when things are good, sales above all else. When things are bad, sales above all else. That's just the way we think over here. Just like a Shark Tank investor, like blood is to the body, sales is to the business. Now, without further ado, Lloyd, you should be able to share your screen if you want to check for me.
You'll have to enable it.
Okay, let's do that. All right, you got it.
All right, so I'm about to share my screen, guys. This handout will be made available to you if you ask for it. Just Rahul and our team in the back end will be able to get it to you if it's something that you'd like. But I want to go through a quick little presentation today. But let's start off, before we get too deep into the weeds, let's start off with just why we are here and who this is really applicable for. All right. Table of contents, we're going to be talking about all the back end stuff, all the granular nitty gritty stuff, hiring, sourcing, interviews, onboarding. But before we get there, you need to understand that not every single person actually should onboard setters. In fact, I would argue that the majority of agency owners are probably not even ready for appointment setters yet. Okay, so how do you know that you're the right fit for this particular type of strategy? I think the first thing is that you need to be selling a high ticket offer. If you're selling a very low ticket coaching offer or a low ticket consulting offer, or you're selling like only GHL, for example, on a $249 per month package, you're probably not going to be able to use a setter. And the reason why is because a setter is a human being, and a setter needs to get paid enough that it's worth their while. So if you're paying them enough, then whatever it is that you're charging your customers for your offers and services better be sufficient that there is enough margin, right? So when you're selling a $5,000, a $7,000, a $10,000 offer, you have more than enough to pay off commissions to these appointment setters where you're happy, they're happy. But these low ticket things is just not really going to work out. My recommendation is if you're doing low ticket, you probably shouldn't even be jumping on sales calls really, because the more time inefficient methods to close a deal, you don't have as much wiggle room in terms of the LTV, right? So for me, whenever I've launched like lower ticket offers, it's always been with like some sort of like self-checkout option. So a $200 program, you can't really do sales calls, but definitely all these high ticket stuff is like highly qualified for an appointment setter or a closer to be working on. Now, the other thing that I would say that you really need to understand is a setter is only going to work if your business has reached a certain level of sophistication. So if you're brand new, a setter is not going to be capable of generating results, right? And a lot of people come to me and they say, hey, I want a setter. But when I ask them a bit more about their business, it turns out that they just started their business and they're looking at the setter almost like a magic pill to fix their lead generation issues. But the reality is, if you yourself don't even know how to generate leads for your business, then you can sure bet your money that an appointment setter is not going to be able to fix your lead generation problem either. A setter is only going to work if you already have processes in place that can generate you leads. The problem that you're trying to solve with setters is that you're just not efficient with it, right? Like, let's say you have a lot of people that are engaging inside your Facebook group or your Instagram following, and you just can't get to all the conversations. You can't get to all the DMs. There's just simply too much volume. That's when you would plug in a setter, but you inherently already have enough lead flow for your setter to be having all those conversations, right? Another thing, right? If you don't even know how to close deals or you haven't validated your offering yet, your business lacks sophistication for your setter to be able to succeed in the long term. So that's why I typically recommend people who are already doing, say, around $15,000 to $20,000 a month. That's when you can start considering bringing on a setter. In rare occasions, you can bring them on earlier than that, but it's very rare that I've seen people to be able to succeed with setters unless they're already there. But that's the thing. Once you're at that stage, once you're ready to take the foundations of your business and actually scale it, A setter can take your business and get it from 20K to 50K. It can take it from 30K to 100K, and it can get it there in literally just like 3 months. That's the cool thing. So not a beginner strategy, but something that almost anyone who's in the intermediate level can use in order to double or triple their business in a relatively short amount of time. And the beautiful thing is when you have the setter, you save a ton of time, right? It's cool that you could actually be working less hours per week, making 50K a month than when you were making 20K a month. And it's just because a big part of the daily operations, which was based around lead generation, you've now offloaded, but not only have you saved that 20 hours that you would have spent normally with it, but you've actually reduced 20 hours of time because now you have someone working essentially full time on it, right? So that's kind of the idea. Any questions so far? And I'm very curious if you guys can just drop in the chat, maybe drop like roughly where your business is, whether it be in the early stage, maybe sub 10K a month, or if you're above 10, 15, 20K, drop it there as well. And that way I'll know how to kind of like adjust the conversation, make sure that's a little bit more contextual to you guys, okay? Great. So obviously the goal of the setter, the appointment setter, they're going to be a human being working in the background 40 hours a week. It's a full-time job. Their job is to essentially fill up your calendar so it looks something like this. Now, what are some of the use cases? I'm not going to go through every single use case because frankly, they're super versatile and there's a lot that a setter can do. But I'll walk you through some of the use cases that either I've seen work with my clients or what we even do internally at GSD and other companies that I've run. So the most common one I would say is, let's say you have a thriving community or you have a thriving social channel on some platform, and all those people are engaging with your content, right? Maybe you're dropping a two-step post, maybe you're doing a live webinar, maybe you're sharing all this stuff on your stories or whatever. And inherently people are going to like, they're going to comment, they're going to want to engage. Your setter should be on the ball talking to every single one of them. Every single one of them should get some sort of DM to start a conversation, right? And the reason why this is so important is because most people kind of get lazy in regards to their content. Maybe you share a piece of content and you think, oh, it's a good piece of content. If people like it, they should just book a meeting with me on their own. Unfortunately, most people are lazy. And you can even think back to the last several webinars that you watched. How many times have you enjoyed a webinar, yet you didn't really do anything after? Even if there was a call to action saying, hey, book a call with me. How often have you listened to that call to action and you're like, nah, I'm good, right? Drop in the channel if you've ever done that. For me, I've done that as well. Like I've attended many webinars where I heard that call to action. I didn't do anything about it. So instead, we are going to just be proactive. We're going to get a setter to DM anyone who's checked out the webinar or has pretty much said, hey, yes, I would like that free guide thing. And we're going to DM them. We're going to either give them the thing that they asked for, or we're going to start a conversation with them and start asking them some qualifying questions about, hey, what did you like about the content? What's your story? What are some of your goals? What are you struggling with in business? And that is where we could start moving the conversation towards booking a call, right? So that's a very common use case. Another use case would be, let's say you're just doing cold outreach, right? I actually have a friend of mine. He runs a real estate marketing agency. They do around 75K per month. And he literally just has like 8 setters, and they all just do one thing and one thing only. They each send out 50 video recorded emails every single day, 50 personalized Loom videos recorded, customized based on that person or that prospect's website and their Facebook page. And they just create 50 every single day and they blast it out on email. It's pretty simple, right? He's not really doing anything complicated. He's not really relying on multi-channel delivery. He's just doing one thing, but doing it very, very well. And he has the talent in order to make it scalable, because obviously he's not going to be able to send out 500 of these messages on his own, given that they're all personalized videos. So whether it's cold outreach on email or LinkedIn or whatever it may be, obviously you got to solve what the initial cold outreach strategy is and make sure that it works. But once it works, attaching a setter to it so that the setter can be the one who's doing it every single day is going to allow you to generate more success, right? Calling. We actually do this internally. We run a pretty good amount of ad spend every single month. We get a lot of people who just like opt in to see our stuff, download some of our assets. We'll have their phone numbers, but most of them aren't going to book a call. Okay. So we just have one of our.
So now it's working. I can hear you now. I don't understand why at 5:02 I didn't hear you call.
Can we mute whoever that is?
Done.
Are we back? Okay,
Yep.
cool. Yeah, so like internally, we run a good amount of ad spend and we just have our setters calling them. So actually we have one of our setters, Ahmad, and he's our lead setter. He's been around the company for the longest, the most amount of time. And if you actually look at his like worksheet in terms of how many meetings he's booked in the last several weeks, you can see he averages a good amount, right? Like on average, he's doing between 10 to 20 every single week, which is pretty stellar. But if you actually look at the sources for where his meetings are coming from, and we scroll down to like the most recent couple weeks, you'll see that like it's heavily weighted towards SMS and phone. So it's pretty cool. The degree at which, I mean, obviously we're multi-channel, but just picking up the phone and being proactive and hitting at the people in the CRM with SMS, like that stuff works. And that's how we book actually a huge chunk of our meetings. So many different use cases. And then we even have one setter who's for the most part just focused on doing triage calls. So his name is Jason. Some of you may or may not have spoken with in the past. And it's good because obviously not every single lead that you are going to jump on a call with is going to be fully qualified. So when you have a lot of meetings, as we do, like we're booking 20 to 30 meetings every single week, typically across all of our setters, having someone that can just do all the qualification is really, really quite nice. So those are a couple different use cases that allow Cody, Rahul, and myself to be able to focus more on higher leverage activities rather than just biz dev, okay? So by the way, if there's any questions, guys, you can just drop them. You can write the questions out and just drop them in the chat. I might not necessarily get to them like in real time. I might save them until later, but if you're gonna forget the questions, you might as well just write it down now so that it's there for us, all right? Cool. With that being said, now that you kind of understand who should be doing this and why this is important and what are the different use cases that you could in theory deploy for setters, I wanna walk through how you can actually build out this machine. And the first thing that I wanna share is what to not do. Because I think there's a lot of mistakes that people oftentimes make that'll kind of ruin their setter ROI out of the gate before they even really start building anything. So the first thing is not understanding that a setter is like a salesperson. A setter is a salesperson. And if you just hire like a cheap Filipino VA that's never really done sales before, they're mostly like a data admin person, and you think that you can get away with that, well, what's going to happen, and this has actually happened to me before, my first attempt at a setter was just using my VA. They just don't have the conversation skills to be able to take anyone in the DMs and turn them into a booked call. They don't really know how to qualify. They certainly don't know how to handle objections. They're not going to be persistent enough to follow up. And they just don't really understand how to like read the needs of the buyer. So for me, like it was only when I found someone who's been in sales for a couple of years, also giving them additional training as well, but really someone who already understood the game of sales, that was when I was able to start generating real results, right? So hiring a VA because you're trying to be cheap is usually going to end up backfiring on you. Now, the next thing is, even if you have like the right talent, let's say you brought in a good salesperson, if you don't have any of like the right processes or systems, it's going to be a problem. Not having scripts, not having tracking sheets, not having a lot of the things that you pretty much need for them to be able to do their job is a problem. Like imagine you were working a normal 9-to-5 job, and then you showed up on your first day and you asked your boss, all right, like it's my first day, what do you want me to do? And they were like, I don't know, go figure it out. Like, what are the odds that you're going to actually be able to do good in this new job of yours? Not only would you not do good in this job, you'll probably just like quit a month in because you don't feel supported and you're probably not able to generate results. And especially in a commission-based role, if you're not generating results, you're not making money. And then of course, you're just going to quit and go somewhere else. There have been many, many setters which I've been able to poach from other companies because they were not being supported by their team, by their boss. Their boss was just like, go figure it out. It's just like a bad working environment. And it's an environment which is going to lead to a lot of burnout and just like a lot of failure. So this needs to be done, right? This needs to be this needs to be optimized so that people don't actually quit on you. Now, the next thing that you want to make sure that you're setting up is that you have a good commission structure. You don't want to just be like bringing on a setter and then giving them a commission structure or a salary structure that isn't optimized for them to actually perform well, right? So I'm going to go a bit deeper later on in terms of like the numbers that we recommend, but just know this out of the gate. The fourth thing, and I've spoken about this prior, is also just like lead flow. If your setter is just sitting around all day, not really knowing what to do because there's no lead flow, then you should have never even hired them. I've worked with a lot of software companies, as I had said before, and one of the problems that happens with like software companies is that they try to grow a little bit too fast. Maybe they have like pressure from investors that, oh, you have to hire, you have to hire, you have to hire. You have to show us that you're actually growing. So they'll end up hiring too fast and they'll hire salespeople before there's even sales calls for those salespeople, or they'll hire SDRs or appointment setters before there's even leads for those setters to talk to. And then what happens is they just sit around all day and they're like waiting to do stuff, but there's nothing to do. Not great. So my recommendation for small business owners is like hire only when you can actually support that person with the requisite materials, if you will, for them to succeed. In this case, it would be lead flow. And the last thing is just doing cold outreach. I would say like these days in 2023, the audience is sophisticated enough and they get marketed to enough that they're just really skeptical. And if all they know from you is that you sent them like a cold DM and they've never seen any of your content, the conversion rate is going to be really low. So everything here is a potential sign that your setter system is going to break or fail. So if that's the case, just make sure that you don't have these problems before you actually start hiring. All right. So like I said, any questions, just pop it in. I'll get to it at the end of the call. So let's go through the hiring funnel. All right.
Real quick, Lloyd, I wanted to just kind of pivot like on one of the things that you mentioned. You're talking about like losing setters, like they'll quit on you if you don't have enough opportunity. Now, hovering on that for a second, like has anybody ever had a setter or somebody in that realm, like a virtual person, you hired them, there wasn't that clarity that you wish that they had, you wish like what's in your brain would be in theirs, it's effortless for you. Has that ever happened to anybody that's listening right now on Facebook? Just drop a 1 in the chat, or me. But let's just go over the cost of a bad hire for a second. If you Google it yourself, you can Google how much can a bad hire cost a company. Now, think about the growth potential that you have on the upside and also the time and the energy you have in the now side of what you're doing. It says the average cost of a bad hire ranges from $17,000 to $240,000, and that's per year. And that could be up to 30% of the employee's first year earnings. That's why this document right here, as simplistic as it may seem, there's granular details behind all of this stuff, which we're not going to cover today. But that's how important it is to have a very refined process. And that's where your scale is. Like Lloyd mentioned, if you're in that 15, 25K mark, that's when you're going to want to be able to duplicate the business and be able to grow out of the lower level tasks for yourselves. That will give you infinite scale, but also that grind. I mean, I did it for a decade when I first started, and it's a different animal. You got to do it every day, day in, day out, cold emails, respond to all the emails. You never want to miss an opportunity, lose sleep over it. Now we kind of transfer, like we go to bed and then our setters are taking on those responsibilities. And that's why it's so important to have a documented process and layers all throughout, because you're going to run into bottlenecks. Because when you have an SOP, a standard operating procedure, think of it as a living, breathing organism. It always is going to evolve. It needs to be updated regularly. And now you can give that responsibility also to a responsible setter that's just crushing it. And they're going to always find ways to give feedback loops and improve your business and your process. And then Jack, like, where do we build our SOPs? On a document like this? We keep it simple. We have Google Docs.
Thank
Okay,
you for
back
that
to you, Lloyd.
context. Yeah, another thing, like you hire a mediocre setter and you're giving them a bunch of like leads that you worked hard on. Maybe you're doing like lives every week, or maybe you're spending money on ads to get traffic in the door. But then if you give that traffic to a shitty setter, am I allowed to swear on these, Rahul? I have no idea.
Well, the name, well, we call it
It's
get
already
shit
happened.
done. So inherently,
It's already
yes.
happened. So there's nothing you can do about it now. Yeah, but you give a mediocre setter a bunch of leads, they're going to waste those leads. So it's the opportunity cost. It's like those leads could have been money if it was a better setter. Hire a bad setter, those leads are not just not money. It's just regret. Lots of regret. And then like, I can also speak to just like the stress and the time wasted in trying to like make a mediocre setter not mediocre. Like all the time that you waste on a setter up to you firing them is like time that you didn't need to waste if they were just someone good. So just FYI. Anyhow, how do you get the right setter is the question. And at a high level, like the hiring funnel is as follows. For every 100 applications, you typically can get one setter. Now, if you were to break down the funnel a little bit more, normally like 15 out of those 100 will turn into first round interviews. And then of those, maybe 5 to 7, so like 33%-ish, will turn into second rounds. And then from there, maybe half are good enough that you'll put them onto a little trial. So I'll go a bit deeper into each of these steps later, but just like understand that there's a multi-step process, 100 applications, one hire, usually. Okay. So moving on to the individual steps now. Right now we're at the stage where we're starting to hire. What do we want to do? Step by step is actually nothing to do with hiring yet. It's more about building the foundation for the setter. So I talked about earlier, one of the problems being not having the right systems in advance of the setter joining. So if you don't have those right SOPs, those right standard operating procedures that Rahul is like referring to, you're probably not going to be able to succeed, right? So what does that look like? Well, there's a couple things. I mean, the more obvious one is like they better just understand your business, right? You better train them on who you're selling to, your customer psychology, all that type of stuff needs to be documented. And if not, then you should get on it right away. But then other SOPs that are like very setter centric would be conversation trees and conversation scripts. Do you actually have like not just linear scripts, right? Because you have to understand when you're talking to people on the phone or in the DMs, the conversations just don't just go on the line. They kind of change depending on the nature of how the prospect responds. So you need to come up with almost like a if-then diagram that takes into consideration what the prospects are likely to say. And then based on what they say, how does your setter respond? If they need to disqualify, or if they need to ask further questions, or if they just go for the kill and book the meeting, overcoming objections, et cetera, et cetera. So like, obviously you can't really build this out unless you've first had hundreds of conversations, which is once again, why this is not an early beginner stage strategy. Like if you've not even figured out DM sales yourself yet, then how is a setter going to do it? Like you can hire a setter for them to actually execute the process, but if there is no process, you can't expect them to come up with the process. That's like pretty unrealistic. So like that's an example. Obviously the tracking sheet, I'm not going to show you everything here, but just understanding that everything is like very, very thoroughly tracked. We know exactly how many leads are coming in. We know which setter is generating them. We know like where the leads are coming from. We know the lead quality. Everything has been measured. And we're super anal about like making sure that the setters are filling this out and that they're following up and doing all the unsexy things that people sometimes don't think of when it comes to sales. So these are just scratching the surface. There's frankly a lot more, but hopefully that is, a pretty good overview. There's a lot more that when we start working with a client, we obviously make sure that it's finished and optimized. Now, let's assume that you have all the SOPs ready and they're done. Now what do you do? Well, obviously you got to go and start finding some candidates, right? So generally speaking, what am I looking for in a candidate? I'm looking for someone who's already been in sales personally. Not everyone feels the same about that. Obviously, if you're a salesperson, you're going to have to get your first sales job somewhere, It's just that for me personally, I don't want to have to spend like months training someone before they're productive and profitable. So for me, I only hire people who've already been in sales for a couple of years. Preferably someone who's actually been good at sales. They've beaten quota in the past. I also look at future ambition as being like an interesting mark for success. So if they want to eventually be a closer one day, if they want to become a sales manager, that helps. Obviously, fluency in English, especially because like we do hire out of countries sometimes where there's like a lower cost of living, because it allows us to save on some money. If we can get away with paying someone 25% is what it might cost to hire an American or a Canadian, we will, but we can't really sacrifice on the English fluency or the capability and the skill set, right? So like for me, my favorite hiring sources, I think like LinkedIn hiring is really, really great. Facebook groups as well. I have like a personal email list that I reach out to because like I've been building a bit of a network for years now. And there's also like other tiny little job boards here and there that I've experimented with that are good. As well, I've even like experimented with some like paid ads to like hire people. So Facebook actually has lots of ads in which you can run for hiring. But I mean, you don't really need to be overcomplicating your hiring process. To be honest, if all you use was like LinkedIn or Facebook groups, that's probably sufficient. The reason why I've had to experiment more, obviously, is because I've had to support a larger volume of hiring, whereas you guys might only need to worry about like getting one person. Like there have been months where I've hired dozens, right? So it's just a little bit of a different situation for me, where I need like the applicant volume. So that's where I would like source the candidates from. Now, once you have the candidates, what do you do with them, right? So there's typically 2 rounds of interviews that I'll do. The first is more behavioral, very quick 15 to 20-minute interview. I'm just trying to ask like what their story is, why they even applied. Do they like sales? Why do they like sales? Have they hit quota in the past? What are their previous sales experiences? Describe me the day-to-day. Like, have they like used softwares and technology and CRMs before? Like, do they have good logistics? So like a lot of these like basic things, I'm not even really trying to get a sense of, are they really good at sales yet? I'm just trying to get a sense if they generally even meet our requirements. Whereas like the second interview is more about actually running them through a role play so that we can see their ability to sell more or less, right? Like, and I've done role plays in multiple ways. I've done call role plays. I've done DM role plays. It kind of depends on who it is that I'm trying to hire. But generally speaking, if you run a call role play, someone who's like good on the phone or good at like trying to book a meeting with you over the phone on a call is going to be able to do DM role play as well. Just because like DMing is easier than calls. DMing and calls are the same. It's just like calls are real time. Whereas DMing, you actually can like think and kind of reflect on what it is that they said and what it is that you want to say. So just for efficiency, if I had to pick one type of role play to do with a potential setter candidate, just like give them a scenario, they're calling you, trying to book a meeting, you're the prospect, they're the salesperson, and like just see, are they posed, are they poised, can they handle objections, can they ask the right questions, etc., right? So if they can do that, and most can't, but if they can, that's when we move them to the next stage, which is let's just test them out, right? Let's actually put them into your business for a week or two and just see how well they perform. Because unfortunately, there are lots of people who can perform well in interviews and they'll kind of like suck in real life. I mean, if anyone's experienced that, please post a sad face emoji in the chat. Hire someone, thought they were going to be really good. They were not. So, you know, I've had enough of those experiences where now I just like, I'm super skeptical. And I just put them on trials and, you know, like show me how good you actually are. Now I'll pay them for this, right? Like if they're actually going to be spending a full week with me, I'll pay them some sort of like base rate, maybe like $100 or $200 just for their time. And I'll typically just test out 2 or 3. And very rarely will I find that all 3 are the same level, right? Normally, one of them is going to be the best and I'll just hire the best. So what are you evaluating them in the trial? Well, a couple things. Interestingly enough, the actual booking performance isn't necessarily the most important thing. I care more about some of these other intangibles like punctuality, coachability. Are they doing the unsexy things such as tracking? And then subjectively, but you can kind of tell, like, go through their conversations. Were they good? Are they good talking to people? And then of course, look at the numbers too, right? Look at the numbers. But really, like if they're doing all of these things well, they should in theory be doing this well as well, which is why I look at this more of like the catch-all, but then these are kind of like the specific granular details that I think lead to whether or not they're going to do a good job. So best setter gets a job. You know, it's like that scene in The Dark Knight where the Joker breaks the pool stick in half and is like, it's tryouts, baby. That's what it is. It's tryouts. Cool. Alrighty. I'm moving at a good pace, Rahul.
Yeah, everything's going well. Now, real quick, like so far, we'll just do a big pause. Like I wanted to get 1 or 2 shares from you guys that are listening in. Like, what are some takeaways that you guys have pinpointed that you like about this process? And you guys will get the document. Don't worry about that. Just comment on the Facebook thread. But I just want to hear 1 or 2 takeaways from you guys. If you could come off mute. We got a verbal audience. Maybe everybody.
I'm already off mute, so I'll go first.
Okay,
Sorry,
cool.
I didn't realize I was off mute this whole time. It's a little bit above where I'm at. So I would say for me, you know, it's above where I'm at, but I love the possibilities. I think it's super succinct the way you do it. You can tell that you're tracking everything. You can tell that it's definitely the way to do it. I love that he said, you know, don't just hire the VAs, hire somebody who's qualified to do this. I think probably all of us have made that mistake at some point in time or another, just to bring people in and have 0 results. And it's because you don't have everything set up ahead of time. So I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, is to really put in the work ourselves until we get to that stage and realize what is working, what's not working, how we're really going to get the best results, and then move forward with this document. I mean, I think this document is like a really, really nice piece for us to have in our toolkit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that share. And like I said, if you guys do want the document, just go into the chat on Zoom here. And those of you guys in Facebook land, if you want the document, do hashtag GSD setter, hashtag GSD setter, and then we'll get it over to you after the live. All right. So at this stage, we'll go through the next stages here. Real quick, I want to just share my screen for 1 second. For those of you guys that are watching this live on the stream and aren't with us here on Zoom and want to be able to participate, I want to give you guys that opportunity. This is literally for less than a burrito from Chipotle, a Starbucks coffee with oil in it. And yes, they do serve coffee with oil now. It's over $7. You can get access to being on these Zooms. And what you get is 2 courses. Number 1 is going to be our Agency Foundations 2.0 course. It's a premium version of our 1.0. 1.0, for those of you guys that still don't have it and want it, it's free for everybody in the Facebook group. 2.0 is a lot more advanced. It has much more intimate training, more recent updates that we've made. We're constantly updating it. Every single week, we're live side by side. We're about to cut the stream, and then we go into a little bit deeper of a conversation with everybody who's participating on the Zoom with us. So you'll get weekly master classes to learn how to run and scale your business a little bit more effortlessly, because it is a little bit lonely. There's a lot of people out there. There's high ticket, low ticket, etc. We feel like we've packed everything into one place of running an agency and a coaching business over the last 20 years. And then you'll get weekly direct coaching from Cody, myself, now Lloyd. You guys have now met him. He's going to be part of some of these trainings. Here are those 2 courses that I mentioned, the Agency Foundations 2.0 and then the SaaS Agency Accelerator. There's over 50 lessons in just this SaaS one alone, plus our AI last masterclass is a part of it as well. And every single week, these recordings go inside everybody's portal. So you'll get access to previous recordings that you can just consume on the go, at the gym, in the car, watching a soccer match, whatever it is you do. Plus, we have some extra bonuses here with ads. Ads are like unicorns, right? They're fucking hard to find. We've put together an ad strategy that fuels our business. It fuels a lot of our other clients' businesses. And just today alone, Cody rejiggered somebody's targeting and messaging, and then out popped a $5,000 upfront paid in full sale for one of our clients. And then we can't devalue. We can only put a highest value we possibly can on network. It's not necessarily like who you know, it's who knows you. And this is a great network where you can be in the know with our people, with our GSD people, referring business, sharing their own experiences from their vantage point based on where they are in their ecosystem or their evolution of their business. So anybody who wants to get access to this, Sammer, if you can drop this link, give them the bonus link, which is just $7. All you have to do is literally fill in a few fields and you'll be instantly given access to everything right out the gate. We're not gating anything. You get absolute 100% full access. Plus you'll be able to come on all these weekly Zooms. With that being said, can we give it up for Lloyd here, guys? Can we give him some love in the Facebook world and even in the chat? And I mean, this dude is a beast of a process master, and really put together some of the blind spots that Cody and I didn't even see because he had time to breathe. This is his baby. This is his core. This is his skill set. And when we're focused on 7 things and he's focused on one thing at a time, we really can kind of knock it off the list with pure confidence, because when he came into our business and joined the GSD, really put together a much more detailed process to, number one, fuel our culture. That's one. Number two, because culture is a lot, have fun together. We're going to be working long hours together, etc. 2 is the training, finding gaps in every person so they can achieve their personal goals, also the company goals. Because it's really important that everything we do when we're coaching people, if we get you what you want, naturally we're going to get what we want. That's how we treat our staff and our employees. We want them to scale. We want them to be free. We want them to, if they want to leave, our job is to create that pathway so they get what they want. And that's what we hope to keep everybody even stickier within our system. And that's what good setters will do. It creates that revenue. It's a revenue generating activity. But think about the cash flow that you're going to be able to produce. Think in 10 years from now, how much more money, how much more revenue, how much more options, how many more mistakes can you buy? Right. And what would you do with all of that extra revenue, that less hours, that free time, that legacy? Because everybody wants significance in life. They want to be significant for something or somebody. And for many of you, it'll be children or grandchildren or the next legacy. So you can be a role model to many, an influencer to your network. And that's why these steps are just so important to get right, because it is draining running a business. I feel the pain of all of you guys. Every level has a new devil. But sales, man, sales shouldn't be one of them. It's just a process that just it's easy to explain, and it just takes everyday training, everyday refinement, and hopefully some of you guys join the GSD and consider us as your mentors and coach you to that promised land for yourselves. So my offer is, if you do want to chat with us, let us know. Just say, call me, we'll DM you. You can ping me, Lloyd, Cody, whoever, and we're happy to have that chat with you guys. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the stream right now, and then we're just going to go onto our private training here, guys, and then we'll wrap up that document. And anybody, last thing, go to Facebook right now. That's over here on this Zoom before you forget.
Come over to the dance.
Yeah, somebody was talking there. And then just type in GSD setter inside the Facebook stream, because after that, that's how we're going to compile the list to distribute it afterwards. Okay. Okay. Lloyd, you're the host. So on the top left of your screen where it says custom live streaming services, if you hit that little drop down